Acing your WAEC and NECO examinations has been made easy by the Lagos State Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education with the Eko Learners Support for WAEC and NECO Candidates television program. Join seasoned teachers as they take you through these core subjects, targeting the exact syllabus of WAEC and NECO. Watch Eko Learners Support for WAEC and NECO candidates through these social media platforms to access more educational content and give their feedback. Eko Learners Support for WAEC and NECO candidates. Pass your examinations with flying colors.
Good day, viewers. Welcome to today's edition of Eko Learners Support for WAEC and NECO candidates. My name is Salau Abubakar Laulua. I'll be teaching you history. The topic we'll be looking at today is the Civil War in Yoruba land in the 19th century. The objectives we are aiming to achieve is that at the end of the lesson, students will be able to examine the causes of civil war in Yoruba land in the 19th century, mention the major wars that was fought during the civil war, highlight the impact of the 19th century civil war in Yoruba land. The 19th century was a revolutionary period in Yoruba land due to a lot of events that changed the fate and landscape of Yoruba land till today. Part of the events include Afonja Rebellion and the fall of Old Oyo Empire. But the event that has the greatest impact is the outbreak of civil war in Yoruba land. Let's examine the causes of the civil war. The major effect that led to the outbreak of civil war, which is a war among brothers and sister states within Yoruba land, can be associated to include: 1. The collapse of Old Oyo Empire and the struggle for supremacy as a result of the vacuum that was left by the fall of Old Oyo Empire. Desire to control trade routes, which caused war between the Ijebu and the Egbas, and also the emergence of Ibadan supremacy and its dominance over other towns in Yoruba land. Also, we'll look at the Egbas and Ijebu regarding Ibadan as a scourge and see them as an arrogant and outcast who had no right to dictate for them, because after the emergence of Ibadan supremacy, other people see them as those that shouldn't be the one to rise to supremacy. Also, the exploitative nature of Ibadan through reckless demand of food items and livestock and cheap labor from other towns that they are administering on behalf of the Oyo and Alaafin. And also, the slave raiding and pillaging of towns by Ibadan soldiers is also an important factor that led to the outbreak of war. And also the high-handedness and greed of the Ajeles and other Ibadan officials who took over the control of administration on behalf of the Oyo Empire. Now, we'll examine the several wars that was fought and that were parts of the civil war in Yoruba land in the 19th century. We'll look at a Kiriji War. The Kiriji War is the Ekiti Parapo War, which was fought between the Ekiti people and the Ibadan people. And this war was fought as a result of the dominance of Ibadan over the Ekiti people, and the Ekiti trying to gain their independence and control from the Ibadan. We also look at the Ijebu and Egba war. This was the war that was fought between the Ijebu and Egba towards the control of the trade route that leads to the coastal part of the region, which is Lagos. So the trade route led from Lagos into the hinterland, and both the Ijebu and Egbas, they wanted to reroute this trade towards their domain and control it and collect the taxes from the traders. And also we look at the Ibadan and Ijaye war that was being fought over supremacy about who is most powerful among the Ibadan and the Ijaye. And also we look at the Kanle and Eleduwe wars, which is fought between the year 1833 and 1836, and the Mugba war, which was a war that was fought in that period also. We also look at the Batedo war, the Ogele war, and the Owu war, which led to the sack and fall of old Owu kingdom. Now, after all these wars were being fought in Yoruba land, it has a great impact on the people, and several efforts were being made by different individuals and organizations to put an end to this war, because it actually disrupts the life of the people living in the Yoruba land during this period. And eventually, the British were able to successfully initiate a peace treaty in 1886. On 31st of May 1886, a peace treaty was signed by all the erring parties, which brought an end to the civil war in Yoruba land. And we also need to look at several efforts has been made to bring peace into Yoruba land. And even among the erring sides, they've tried severally to look at how they can either control the others or bring peace into the Yoruba land. But all these efforts has actually failed to yield positive results. But the peace treaty of 1886 was successful as a result of some factor. The fourth factor was the death of Ààrẹ Latosha in August 31st, 1885, which removed the major obstacle to peace, because Ààrẹ Latosha was not ready to concede or shift any ground concerning the issues that are leading to the war. So his demise actually left a vacuum in Ibadan, and that vacuum was being occupied by another leader in Ibadan who is more lenient and accommodating and allow for peace to reign. And also the death of Awujale in Ijebuland, which has happened before that of the death of Latosha in June 1885. This enabled the Ijebu to have more focus on internal politics and not actually have interest in external interference or execution of war. This actually also give room for them to easily negotiate and shift ground for peace to reign and sign the peace treaty. Also, the leaders of Ekiti Parapọ̀ war were tired of war. Though the war is a war of emancipation, but they are tired of the way the war has been ravaging for a long period of time. Their resources has been stretched out, their personnel are tired, and a lot of things are not going their way. So they also are finding a way to put an end to the war so that they can focus on development. And lastly, the intervention and involvement of the Lagos government and the missionaries. The activities of the Lagos government as at then, also because the war in the Yoruba hinterland is actually affecting the supply of raw materials to Lagos port to be exported outside the country. So this is the reason why the British government in Lagos, because as at 1886, Lagos is already a British colony, and the British government in Lagos actually want an end to to the war in the hinterland of the Yoruba land, which is where the majority of the raw materials they are exporting to Europe are coming from. So those are the factors that actually contributed to why peace treaty was able to be achieved in 1886. Now we look at the terms of the peace treaty. The first term of the peace treaty is the Ekiti Parapọ̀ War to retain their independence from Ibadan, which means that the Ibadan people and the Ibadan hegemony need to respect their independence and allow them to rule over themselves without interfering in their political and social affairs. Also, respect of territorial integrity of parties. It is important to know that everybody was asked to respect the territorial integrity of each other, not to interfere and not to expand territory beyond what their borders were as at then. Also, the cordial relationship between Alaafin and Owa of Ilesha should continue, which means that the Owa of Bokun and the Alaafin to continue their cordial relationship and not allow the war effect with the Owa neighbors to interfere in their cordial relationship. And also retention of both Ekiti Parapọ̀ and Ibadan boundary, which means everybody should maintain status quo as at when the peace treaty was signed. Nobody should cross each other boundary or engage in expansion of territory. Also, the Modakeke to leave Ile-Ife and settle in Oba River, while those who wish to remain in Ile-Ife should be allowed. It is important to know that the Modakeke people are asked to move out of Ife because the Ife war is also part of the major wars that was fought during the Yoruba Civil War, the crisis between the Ife people and the Modakeke people. So a lasting solution was brought to the crisis between them, which eventually in recent time is also erupted again. Then we also look at a peace treaty was signed to allow the Ijebu to leave Ile-Ife, and the Ijebu should decamp and from Modakeke, and they should go home, because it is important to know that as at then the Ijebu people were giving the Modakeke people military assistance and support, and it is concluded that all the Ijebu soldiers that were in Modakeke as at then should decamp and go home, and also the Modakeke people are being promised protection and peace. So those are the terms of the peace treaty that was signed in 1886. Now we will look at the impact of the war, because the war has a great impact on the people. Despite it being war, which we all know is a negative thing to happen in any society, it still left a great positive impact on Yoruba land. Some of the great impact it left on Yoruba land is: one, the creation of new town. It led to the creation of new town as people are moving from one place to another. For example, Abeokuta, Agoiwoye, and some other towns have been established as a result of this war, whereby people left their home to go and seek refuge in a new land, which led to the creation of a new town. Also, the establishment of larger metropolitans. The war actually made people to leave their domain to a place that has safer protection. And example of this is Ibadan, which become a very big and large cosmopolitan that even at a point in time was the largest city in West Africa. The emergence of Ibadan as the largest city in West Africa was as a result of this war. Also, it led to the emergence of great leaders and reputable leaders of character. And example of them is Ààrẹ Látòṣà, Kúrúnmí of Ìjàyè, Ògèdèngbé of Ilesha, Ṣódẹkẹ́ of Abeokuta, Fábùnmi of Okemesi, and many other great leaders that emerged out of this war and are being referred as a great personality till today. Also, we will look at the emergence of new political ideology in the ruling of several territories in Yoruba land. It led to the introduction of new political ideology by the refugees that found some towns and regions in Yoruba land. It led to the federalism in Egba land, the militarism in Ibadan, whereby the most powerful military personnel rule over the land, the military autocracy in Ijaye, as we've seen in the way Ààrẹ Kúrúnmí rule over the territory of Ijaye, and the confederalism in Ekiti as practiced by the Ekiti Parapọ̀ people, whereby everybody comes together and send a representative to formulate policy that will benefit everybody individually. Now we look at the negative impact of the war on Yoruba land. The first one is the destruction of the old Oyo Empire. It brought to the final destruction of old Oyo Empire and the abandonment of the town and moving it to the current site where we have Oyo town as at today. Also, the destruction of other Yoruba towns, e.g. the Owu, Ijaye, Apomu, and Modakeke as an example of towns that were being destroyed during the period of the war. And also, the population and destruction of lives and property of people happened during that period. And also, we look at the collapse of Yoruba social, political, and religious institutions. As a result of war, a lot of things were being lost, a lot of socio-cultural practices got neglected and eventually lost during the period of the war. And also, it weakened and destroyed the economic activities of the people, which is in fact one of the reasons why the British colonizer in Lagos need to intervene, as the economic impact of the war is directly even affecting them here in Lagos that is not participating in the war. And we will also look at intensification of slave trade. Slave raiding actually happened in the war, and slave trade is also a negative impact that the war actually brought. And also outbreak of famine, hunger, and starvation. A lot of able men that ought to be on field farming could not go to farm as a result of security, and those that could go to, that didn't as a result of security go to farm, they went to the war front to go and participate in the war. And this actually led to a shortage of manpower in cultivating agricultural products for the people, which led to a food shortage and starvation. Now we look at the practice question. The first practice question is, name any 3 warlords of Yoruba civil war. And the second question says, in what 4 ways were the Yoruba civil war important in the history of Nigeria? And these questions are questions that just came out in this last concluded 2024 WAEC. Now we'll look at the answers to the practice question. The first one is the great men that are part of the civil war in Yoruba land. The first person we'll be looking at is Ogedengbe of Ilesha. The second person is Kúrúnmí of Ijaye. The third person we'll be looking at is Latosha of Ibadan. Then the next person we will examine is Sodeke of Abeokuta, Fabunmi of Okemesi, and Timi of Ede. These are great important personalities that were part of the Yoruba Civil War and played an important role during the execution of the war. Then the second question asks that what are the importance of the Yoruba Civil War to current Nigeria? Then we will look at first urbanization and migration. It led to the urbanization of a lot of towns. Just like we've previously mentioned Ibadan. The Ibadan emerging as the biggest city in West Africa is as a result of this war. Those are part of the impact of the war in current Nigeria. We also look at economic diversification. The war actually brought about warfare as an occupation in Yoruba land, because previously warfare is not being seen as an important thing, but the war actually brings it as a source of income or as a source of occupation to people in the Yoruba land. We also look at political realignment. It brought about a lot of political realignment whereby people make side with each other and eventually becomes enemy with each other, and it actually taught a lot of political lesson in current Nigeria. Also, cultural exchange and influence. The refugees that move from one place to another actually introduce new culture. For example, now we could find the people of Abeokuta using shekere, which is predominantly a culture of the Oyo people. So these are part of this thing, the expansion and the introduction of like Ogboni court to other towns and places within Yoruba land. These are part an example of cultural exchange that happened as a result of the Civil War. We also look at the establishment of new towns. The war also led to the establishment of new towns that are playing important role in Nigeria today. The Abeokuta, as we have it as the capital of Ogun State, was established during the war. If the war has not happened and the refugees that moved from their towns and home places to Abeokuta to create Abeokuta today, they wouldn't have created the town, and that town is serving as an important political site for Nigerians today. Thank you.
Eko Learners Support, a support program of the Lagos State Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education for WAEC and NECO candidates.
If you have any comment or contribution, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us through the comment section or the social media handles that were displayed on the screen. Thank you.